Digest for 777 out I-70 right across from the fire. East import 779 traffic. That's the Brownie, do we, Garfield 13 now tied up? I have no idea where he's at. 14779. 779 Garfield. Which end of Glenwood? South end.
KCNC TV, Colorado's news channel. This is News Center 4 Late Edition with Bob Palmer, Linda Farrow, Larry Green, and Ron Zappolo.
Good evening and welcome to News Center 4 tonight. Here's what's happening. The town of Glenwood Springs is in shock tonight with the loss of at least 11 people in a propane gas explosion this morning. We go live via News Star 4 to Glenwood Springs, and Steve Gray is standing by with the latest. Steve?
Bob, as you said, 11 confirmed dead. One is missing. Crews right now are checking the blast site in an attempt to find that 12th body. In all, 9 people have been hospitalized and they are in stable condition. One person is in serious condition tonight. Again, crews here at the Rocky Mountain Natural Gas Plant are working through the night, searching through the debris for any more victims in there. They say they will, even if they find that 12th person, will continue working through the night as they are looking for answers.
We have an unconfirmed report that they found another body.
Glenwood Springs City Manager Michael Kopp and Police Chief Robert Halbert briefed reporters on the blast this evening. The chief says preliminarily a welder's torch may have set off an explosion when a 1,000-gallon propane tank on a flatbed truck apparently leaked.
The truck contained a propane tank. The truck was being welded upon. Initial witness statements tend to indicate that a leak took place from the propane tank. All of the people in the room attempted to run from the room, and when one of the people opened the door to the outside The infusion of fresh air prompted the explosion.
Company officials are reserving comment on the ongoing investigations, but a spokesman did indicate it was abnormal for a propane tank to be in any building. The police chief indicated there was at least one victim who was kept alive by a Coca-Cola employee who was there before rescuers arrived.
And they actually fed an oxygen tube into the person and gave him a fire extinguisher to keep the fire away from him until the rescue crews could get there over an hour later.
With this many people involved in this whole horrible accident, it's not hard to believe that this little town of Glenwood Springs has been deeply affected by the loss here today. News Center 4's Deanna Salceda has more.
The explosion this morning hits this tourist town especially hard. It comes in the heart of the holiday season, and also it affects a community that calls itself family.
You know, everybody's related to everybody, or real close friends, and it's just, you want to be there to help everybody out, and you just can't. There's nothing you can do.
For many, just waiting is the hardest thing of all.
My heart aches for the family waiting. It's the holidays. I hate to know somebody went like that.
But this community has banded together. They have volunteered help, food, and equipment. But after the smoke is cleared and the debris has been taken away, this is an event that has scarred this community, and it will last for a long time. Deanna Salceda, News Center 4.
One of the things that has made this whole task so grim is that the nature of the explosion was that there was a flash fire, so many of the bodies have been burned. The coroner has set up a morgue and will be working throughout the night to identify those people who were killed in the blast. Those people who are hospitalized, their names have been released and will be available. Perhaps we'll have more on that News Center 4 tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. News Center 4 today. But the dead have not been identified, so many people here in this community still do not know exactly who was killed in this horrible tragedy here today at the Rocky Mountain Natural Gas Plant in Glenwood Springs. Reporting live via News Star 4, this is Steve Gray, News Center 4. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Steve. I understand that now directly behind you, that pile of smoking rubble represents what was a two-story cinder block building that just vanished in an instant.
Two-story building that literally collapsed unto itself, and as you can see, it is still smoldering right now, Bob. That has been a major problem for firefighters. They're trying to get that fire out as well as peel off layer after layer of debris in the hopes of finding someone still alive.
It's a very sad night in Glenwood Springs. Thank you very much for the report, Steve. Linda?
Company that made the ski lift that broke over the weekend at Keystone.
From KUSA in Denver, this is 9 News, number 1 in Colorado.
Good evening. 11 people are now confirmed dead in the propane gas explosion in Glenwood Springs this morning. At least one more person is missing, and there may be more. Sparks from a welding torch apparently set it off. Rescuers are still searching for victims tonight in the rubble of the Rocky Mountain Natural Gas Company. They have recovered the bodies of 10 of the 11 since sundown. It happened at 9 this morning. It levels the company's billing office and maintenance garage.
Dan Dennison has been in Glenwood Springs throughout the day covering this story. He's live with us now from our Western Slope Bureau. Dan, what are they doing tonight to find the rest of the victims?
Mike, while some firefighters continue to pour water on the building's white-hot debris, others are slowly and carefully picking their way through it, searching for the one person still believed missing. Even after they find that person, they'll continue their search on the chance that a salesman or someone else may have been in that building at the time of the explosion. The searchers' task, now in its 13th hour, began as the workday was beginning this morning.
There's another ambulance coming in, 3020.
The force of the explosion was felt for blocks. Witnesses describe it as a tremendous sonic boom with earthquake-like ground waves. At first, they had a hard time telling where the thundering sound came from.
Smoke was so dense at the time that we couldn't tell exactly which building had gone up.
So thick, so blinding, Cameron Calder and employees of the nearby Coke bottling plant could only rescue 6 people before being forced away.
Actually, the smoke was the worst. We weren't able to pull out anybody else because the smoke was really severe at that time.
Ambulances rushed the 6 he and his workers rescued and another 7 to Valley View Hospital. Miraculously, another 5 ran from the building and weren't injured. They told police what happened.
A truck was pulled in this morning with a propane tank on it into the garage area in the bottom of the building, and they were performing some sort of repairs, I understand welding repairs on that truck possibly, and the explosion took place shortly thereafter.
Okay, everybody, let's just stay off the radio head for a minute. We're trying to haul in here and see if we can respond.
There was so little time in which to escape. The two-story building's walls on the verge of collapse now are held precariously up by forklifts as a search continues.
As you saw, everything save that building's walls were destroyed by the explosion, so it could be hours before the final victim is located. Also, 9 News reporter Ron Mitchell in Glenwood Springs tonight tells us officials have confirmed it was a leaking propane tank which had ignited the explosion. It apparently blew when a door was opened and the fresh air ignited the propane in the tank. And also, Rocky Mountain Natural Gas's president said tonight that it is not usual practice to have a propane tank inside a building. Live from the Western Slope Bureau, this is Dan Dennison.
Dan, what's the latest on the injured, and have they identified those who have been injured?
Mike, first of all, 3 people were treated and released at Valley View Hospital in Glenwood Springs this morning. The remaining 10 suffered from flash burns to the face, lacerations, and broken bones. 9 of those people are in fair condition. The other is in critical condition. And of the 11 victims located in the debris so far, only 1 has been identified, and he's 34-year-old Rex Rhodes of Glenwood Springs. The others are expected to be identified sometime tomorrow.
And again, will they work through the night searching for this final victim?
They'll work as long as it takes, and again...
The cause of the morning blast has begun. Investigators are still working under the premise that a leaking propane tank on the back of a flatbed trailer in the company's shop was the source. The Glenwood Springs Fire Chief Jim Mason tells me this morning investigators are not going to develop tunnel vision now and exclude other possible causes. The blast literally blew the building's walls outward, causing the roof and second floor to collapse onto the ground floor. Many of the victims, including 2 who survived, were trapped in the rubble. This morning, 9 of the survivors are in fair condition, and a 10th is in serious condition at Valley View Hospital here in Glenwood Springs. And again, crews are still looking for the body of what is believed to be the 12th and final victim of the accident. Larry?
All right, the reason for the confusion there, we were given 12 names. I had assumed that the 13th person was still missing. However, 11 have been now found, I guess, Dan, and 1 they're still looking for, although we do have the 12 names. All right. Have any of the survivors told their story of what happened yet?
To the authorities, they have, but not to us. Rocky Mountain Natural Gas Company's president said this morning the survivors, as well as the families of the victims, are being kept insulated from the press at this time.
All right. They still hold to the theory that someone was welding near a propane tank and that set it all off?
They're not really sure where the spark came from, whether it was from a welder or apparently there were also overhead heaters in the shop area where the propane tank on the truck was parked. And so it could be a number of sources, but yes, they're still working under the theory that fumes from the propane tank caught a spark and thus ignited.
I would imagine in a small town like Glenwood Springs, it's quite a situation of mourning there for 12 of their people, all close-knit employees of one company being killed at one time. What's the general attitude about this, and what about funeral services? What's planned?
Well, that's certainly correct. In fact, Police Chief Bob Halbert told me this morning that it would be a rare individual who didn't know one or even more of the victims, or at least the survivors of this accident. So far, we've heard no individual funeral plans, but a community memorial service is being planned, and a date for that is apparently going to be set sometime today.
All right, thanks a lot. Dan Dennison reporting live on the phone with us there this afternoon from Glenwood Springs. Dan will have more for us on 9 News at 4:30 and 5. Sylvia.
Incredibly, most of the 15 survivors were apparently closest to the source of the explosion. The 12 people who were killed were furthest from it. Police interviewed 2 survivors today who provided these details. A flatbed semi-truck and trailer had been backed into the ground floor shop. On it, a propane tank with a broken valve. Workers couldn't close the garage door because the truck was too long. As a man was repairing the tank valve, propane escaped. It mixed with air coming in through the open door, and then was ignited by the pilot light of a nearby water heater. That story differs from earlier accounts which indicated a welding torch or building heater provided the spark which caused the explosion. No matter the source, the blast literally flattened the 2-story building.
When the thing exploded, the walls went out and the roof and floor just came right down, and so we had sort of a sandwich effect in there.
It's believed the force of falling debris killed most of the victims. The others were probably killed by the intense heat. Many of them were working on the second floor in offices. They had no chance to escape before the building came tumbling down and buried them. In Glenwood Springs, Dan Dennison, 9 News, Western Slope Bureau.
About 10,000 people live in and around Glenwood Springs, so just about everybody knew at least one of the victims. It was business as usual today in town, but several residents said the tragedy hasn't had time to sink in. Many flags flew at half-staff. Families of victims were in seclusion. Ministers, pastors, and priests who spent most of yesterday comforting the injured and surviving family members met over the noon hour to plan a memorial service. It'll be held Thursday night at 7:30 at the high school.
These times can be times of growth, too, even in tragedy, where we'll maybe come to appreciate each other even more and learn to enjoy life day by day as it comes, because there's a sense in which that's all that we're really guaranteed.
A fund has been set up for the families of those who died. The address is Glenwood Springs Ministerial Alliance, 1102 Grand, Glenwood Springs. The zip is 81601.
A faulty weld and a design flaw are being pinpointed as possible causes of Saturday's ski lift accident at Keystone that injured 49 people. Rick Salinger reports on the preliminary report by the engineer for the Colorado Passenger Tram.
Everybody in this mountain town. Memorial services are planned for Thursday evening here in Glenwood Springs. No announcement just yet on funeral services. On another matter here tonight, 7 survivors remain hospitalized in Valley View Hospital, one of those in critical condition. This looks to be a very difficult Christmas season for many of the people here in Glenwood Springs. Reporting live via News Star 4, this is Steve Gray, News Center 4. Back to you in the studio, Linda.
Thank you very much, Steve. Tonight, only one of the 12 victims' bodies has been positively identified. He is 34-year-old Rex Rhodes, a warehouseman from Newcastle. His father, 55-year-old Alan Rhodes, the Rocky Mountain Natural Gas Senior Vice President, was also killed, as was 33-year-old Dick Eckert, 36-year-old Jim Joslin, 38-year-old Barbara Fledd, and 54-year-old Tom Bowen, all from Glenwood Springs. The other 6 victims are 45-year-old Larry Hudson of Carbondale, 33-year-old David Neal of Newcastle, 23-year-old Shelby Jackson, 29-year-old Brian Carroll, 24-year-old Cindy Cowling, and 34-year-old Terry Lukey, all from Glenwood Springs.
Just one of the Springs. They packed into the high school gymnasium to remember the 12 people who died in the Monday explosion. Survivors of the blast talk of losing more than just friends. They talk of losing a part of their families.
We lived together. We laughed together. We cried together.
The funerals for the victims will begin tomorrow in Glenwood Springs. And in Utah today...